Hi lovelies, you're welcome to my channel. Let's draft this gathers gown with a stylish waistline, okay? So I've ruled a straight line across like so, which I label my shoulder line. From my shoulder line I came down to my bust line. From my shoulder line I came down to my under bust line. From my shoulder line I came down to my waistline. Still from my shoulder line I came down to my hip line. Okay, so from my waistline to my hip line is 8 inches. Please, let's take note of this. Okay, now I came down from my hip line by about 7 or 8 inches. Okay, and this will help us in cutting the gathers for this dress. Okay, now after doing that, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2. I'll mark the point there, and then I'll mark 3 inches for my neck wideness and then 3 inches for the neck depth. I'll go ahead to connect both points together like so for the neck. Then from this 8 inches point, I'll go down by 1 inch and then connect it this way to the neck wideness on the shoulder line for my shoulder slope. Now I'll take my armhole circumference divided by 2 from here. I'll mark the point like so, and then I'll connect it to the shoulder slope point like this. I'll rule a straight line across like so for my chest line. After doing that, I will mark my bust circumference divided by 4 on my chest line, and then I will divide what I have on my armhole area by 2 to get the midpoint. Okay, from that midpoint I'm going to go in by 1/2 of an inch, and then I will connect the front armhole like so. After doing this, from my chest line I will come up by 2.5 inches, okay, to get my upper chest line. You can make use of 3 inches, 2 inches, it depends on what you want. So I came up by 2.5 inches point. I'll go ahead to rule a straight line on that point, and then I will label this line my upper chest line. Okay, after doing that, I will take my nipple to nipple point divided by 2 is 8 inches. After dividing it, I have 4 inches. So I'll mark that 4 inches from my upper chest line all the way to the last line I have on my pattern paper. Okay, after doing that, I'll go ahead to connect the points together with my ruler. So after doing that, this is my center front, this is my side front. From my under bust line on the center front, I will mark 0.75 beside the dart. Then from my side front on my under bust line, I'll mark 1 inch. So I will do the same thing on my waistline, on my hip line, and also the last line I have on my pattern paper. After doing that, I'll connect the points together like so. So I'm connecting the point all the way to the last line I have on my pattern paper for both darts. Okay, now after doing that, from my bust line I'll come down by 1 inch on the dart leg, and then I'll go ahead to connect the bust like so. Okay, so after connecting it, on my upper chest line here, I'll mark 0.75 on the center front, and then on the side front I'll mark 1 inch, just like I did from the under bust line. Okay, I'll go ahead and connect it this way. So this has formed my cup. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is to take my bust circumference divided by 4, which I already did. I'm going to replace the dart intake on my upper chest line here on my chest line, and then I'm going to take my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll mark it there on my waistline. I'll replace the dart intake that I have. I'm going to replace it here. Okay, so I'm going to be taking my hip circumference divided by 4. I will mark the point there, and then I will replace the dart intake I have there. Okay, so I'll go ahead to replace it. So whatever measurement I have on my hip line here is what I'm going to mark on the full length line. Okay, so after marking it like so, I'll go ahead to connect the body point like so. Now after doing that, the next thing I'm going to be doing is from the side below my bust line, I will come down by 1.5 inches for my side dart. So I'm going to be closing the side that. Okay, so this is for my side that. Now the next thing I will do, from this my upper chest line here on the side front area, I'm going to come out by 1 inch, and then I'll go ahead to blend this, to curve this for the side armhole. Okay, after doing that, on the upper chest line on the center front, I'll come up by half of an inch, and then I'll go ahead to join the two cup like so, okay, on my upper chest line, so that I'll be able to get the shape of my cup. Okay, that is the neckline. Okay, I'll go ahead and connect it this way. Now after doing that, this is what I have for the neckline. I'm going to, this dress has like a rope that they use to, will I say, pipe it from the armhole area, then it has rope that you will tie at the back. Okay, so this is how it's going to be. Now after doing that, the next part I'm going to be working on is from the waistline. So on the center front, below the waistline, I came down by 3 inches. Okay, now I will go ahead and mark the point there. Then I'm going to be closing these two darts together. Okay, so I'm making sure that these two darts, that they are aligning, or they're facing each other like so, so that I'll be able to get that curve of this dress. Okay, so from that 3 inches point that I came down by on the waistline, I'll go ahead to connect it to the hip line like so. Okay, from the center front, that 3 inches point, I'll connect it this way to the hip line on the side. Okay, so go ahead and use my pencil to connect it like so. So after getting the shape that I want, I'll use my marker to outline it now. Okay, now after doing that, I'll go ahead to cut this out. So this is how the front neckline will be when I sew it. Okay, I'll go ahead now to close the side dart, and then I'm going to replace whatever that has shortened from the side after closing the side dart. Okay, then I'll go ahead to cut this out. So the next thing I will do is to cut out this curved area, and then I will join it together like so. So for this curve area, I'm going to be doing it slash and spread method. So make sure you join this together with your tape. Then we are going to be doing it slash and spread method. Okay, so I'll go ahead to roll this into 6 places. Okay, and then I will label it my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. So we're going to be doing this slash and spread. So this is all for the front pattern, as you can see. Okay, so after I'm done cutting that, I'll be cutting the center front on fold, and then the side front times 2 of it on my fabric. Now I'll go ahead to cut out the back pattern. Okay, so I've gone ahead to mark my body measurement from my shoulder line. I came down to my bust line. Okay, from my shoulder line, I came down to my back waist line. So my half length for the back, which is also my waistline, is 16 and a half, while for the front is 18 inches. So the difference of 1.5 inches is what I normally take as the side dart for the front. Okay, now from my back waistline, I came down by 8 inches to get my hip point. That is the reason why I measured this white cut on the front pattern. Okay, and then from my hip line, I came down by 7 or 8 inches, just to help us get the parts for the gathers. Okay, now I'll go ahead and mark 1.5 inches for the zipper allowance from this point on every line that I have on my pattern paper, and then I will go ahead to connect the points together like so, and I will label that my zipper allowance line. So now from the back waistline on my zipper allowance part, I'll go in by half of an inch. I will go ahead to connect it this way. Now this is to avoid any zipper bulginess. Okay, so I'm going to be cutting this out, indicating it. Okay, so now I'm going to be taking my measurement from the zipper allowance line. So I'm going to take my shoulder measurement divided by 2 on my shoulder line, and then I'll come down from that 8 inches point by 1 inch, and then I will make use of 3 inches for the neck wideness. I'll go ahead to connect it this way for my shoulder slope. I'll go ahead to take my armhole circumference divided by 2. I'll mark the point there, and then I will connect it like so to my shoulder slope. I'll also rule a straight line across like this to get my chest line. So I'm going to label it my chest line, okay? So after doing that, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 on my chest line here, and then I'll go ahead to connect this as the back armhole. This is not really necessary except you want to make it like a dress that has hand, okay? Now I'll go ahead to take 4 inches from my dart point all the way from my chest line to the last line I have on my pattern paper, okay? I'll go ahead and connect the point like so. After doing that, I will label this my center back and this my side back, okay? On my back waistline here beside the dart, I'll mark half inch on both side, both the side back and the center back, okay? Then from my waistline on the dart, I'll come down by 4 inches, and I'll go ahead to connect the dart of the back like so, okay? I'll connect it to the chest line here. So after connecting the dart like so, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 my chest line, which I already did, and then on my waistline I will mark my waist circumference divided by 4, and then I'll replace the dart intake of 1 inch. On my hip line I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4. I'll mark it there. There's nothing for me to replace, there's no dart for me to replace, so I'm going to repeat the same thing on the last line I have on my pattern paper, okay? So I'm just going to replace the dart intake on my bust line on my chest line here, okay? This is very important because most times it might affect the measurement of your dress, okay? So now I'll go ahead and connect the body point like so. After doing that, I'll go ahead to come down from the back waistline on the center back area by that 3 inches, just like I did for the front piece, okay? And then I'll go ahead, use my curve rule to connect these to the hip line on the side. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to cut this out. So just extend it in a straight way to the zipper allowance side. Now I'm just going to slash this or draw the same 6 inches space that I did for the front piece. Then I'll label this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, okay? So I'll go ahead to outline the chest line as well and then cut this out. So from the chest line is what I need for this tutorial, okay, for this dress. So after cutting this out, this is the zipper allowance, okay? Do not forget. So from this point here is my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, but I'm going to cut it together as one, okay? So I will just relabel it as my zipper allowance. So this is my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 paper that I'm going to spread on a plain pattern paper. So for the center back and the side back, I'll cut times 2 for each, okay? Now I'm bringing the front side to match up the back side, so you can see that I have the same length for both sides. Now this is it for the front pattern and this is it for the back pattern. I'll go ahead to spread the slash and spread, okay? I'll go ahead, bring a plain pattern paper that is wide, okay? So now I'll go ahead to spread this, leaving 2.5 inches spacing. Now that 2.5 inches spacing is how gathered I want this dress to be. You can make use of 3.5 if you want this more gathered. So now I'll go ahead and place it this way, then I will mark 2.5 inches before placing the next one. So when you are placing them on your plain pattern paper, when you are spreading them, make sure that the hip line they are aligning, that is the hip line we drew when drafting this, that they are aligning. That is the only way you know you are doing this correctly. So I'm going to be cutting this front one on fold. So you see that the hip line they are aligning after spreading it on my plain pattern paper, okay? Now I'm going to be doing the same thing for the back pattern, but I'm going to be cutting that one times 2 of it because it has zip at the back. Okay, I'll go ahead to cut this. When cutting on my fabric, I'm going to leave half-inch stitching allowance and then the 1-inch stitching allowance for the down part. And then this is all for this tutorial. So if you've not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, comment, share and like. I'll see you in my next tutorial, but for now, bye.